Thank you, Rumi. Our next speaker is Professor Partha Ghosh. Professor Partha Ghosh is a professor at the Gordon Institute at Tufts, as well as the Fletcher School. Professor Partha Ghosh is a renowned management consultant and also has his own boutique advisory firm called Partha Ghosh and Associates. Professor Ghosh will be presenting to us a very relevant and promising new economic paradigm that challenges the current status quo.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you very much indeed. I think it was a brilliant backdrop that we heard the music, we heard the technologies, and how you bring it together. Now we're going to talk about the future of society. So in that spirit, may I request you to close your eyes for about 15 seconds and dream of the world that you would like to create in front of you. Just 15 seconds. Thank you very much. Since we have limited time, I thought we should move forward. When we look today and look to the future, the world, as you know, is in a state of confusion. We have seen a tremendous amount of lack of trust as Wall Street is concerned. 20 years ago, we saw the fall of USSR, the fall of the Berlin Wall. Obviously, when we think of ism, socialism or capitalism, the question often comes up, what is the next ism? And I firmly believe that we are at a point of inflection when we have to create a new paradigm which has to come from all of you. And I'd like to give you a little bit of a peek into that future. So when you heard about music and the importance of word, and when you heard about how technology is shaped, now we're talking about how do you bring it together so that you can really touch the 6.5 billion people in this world. So to do that, I would first like to give you a little bit of a feel. I put you in a time machine to look at how we have evolved over the last 500 years since the European Renaissance. If you really put it in one word, what we have experienced is what I would call the era of extraction or single-dimensional value creation. And what I really mean is we have extracted raw materials from nature, we have processed it and put it back into the nature. Now we are running out of materials on one side, as well as we're running out of space where to throw the garbage. So the question is, how do we move forward, particularly when we have been extremely unconstrained in processing the Earth's resources? We have, of course, developed new relationship of space and time, thanks to the marvels. Maybe I should move.
Can everyone hear at the back? No. Yeah. Sorry.
Now, is it better? Something is wrong, that means.
Sorry for this.
Let me talk like this.
Oh.
Is it better? Okay, let's see. Yeah, I'm sorry that some of you missed it, but we'll move on. It's a new relationship of space and time. And finally, we have to also think of most of the business model was to basically fuel demand. You like disposable products, you want to buy more, and that has been the business models of the current as well as the past. Now the question is, if we move on with these three type of fundamental forces at work, could the world survive, or should we have to think of a new model? Particularly keeping in mind that in the last 20 years, one word that has haunted us repeatedly is the meltdown. And we're not only talking about the meltdowns of the mountaintops, which is the ecological meltdown. We're talking about economic meltdowns. We saw what happened in Wall Street about 5 years ago, and of course, ethical meltdown, which is perhaps the most dangerous one because there's a lack of ethics all across, particularly what you see and saw in Wall Street about over the last 10 years, over the last 25 years. So the real question that we have to answer is, as we move forward, and when the most of the world is right here, which is low GNP per capita and low energy usage per capita, how would you follow a model that would on one side be able to celebrate the kind of life that we lead here, United States, Japan, the G7 countries, while ensuring that we have the materials which we don't have today, and at the same time we have been able to preserve the environment which we are seriously challenging today. So I'd like to offer you basically 2 points as to how we could uncover the new paradigm and what would it require of us to create the new world that we want to create. Now, when you look at China today, on one side, indeed, this is Shanghai. These were the pictures taken by me. On one side, you see brilliant skyscrapers coming up all across, which matches any modern city today. But at the same time, as soon as you go out of the cities, this is what you see. And in fact, about 1 million people in China died because of pollution. 1 million people, which is half the size of Boston. So, the question that we have to answer as we move forward, where will the resources come from and how do we preserve the environment? The second, do we want to create one culture which is where everywhere you go you see McDonald's, or do you want to create multiple cultures where millions of flowers can bloom and shine? And third, of course, how will you manage the sacrifice that we have to make to change our lifestyles, at the same time share the future of technological marvels that we heard in the previous talk. Now, I fundamentally believe that these were the 3 different groups of forces which has brought us where we are. Look at them very, very carefully. The first part, at the foundational level, when you think of economics, particularly those of you who are students of economics, as you know, much of the debate has been in one vector. Do we give the power to the market, or do we give the power to the government? The Republicans, the Democrats. Basically we've been thinking in one dimension. Secondly, the most fundamental thing which came out of the work that Darwin did, the survival of the fittest. In other words, we believe ultimately there will be one species that will survive. Is that what we want? And of course, Adam Smith's work talks about the value of self-interest, that as long as we can preserve our interests, society progresses. So that is, at foundational level, that has been the belief of the constructs of the last 200 years. At the industrial level, as we talked about earlier, we talked about consumption-centric models, that we want people to consume more. If you consume more, we grow businesses. We want to take advantage of economies of scale. That means bigger you become, the companies become more successful. Though, as you know, General Motors, Pan Am, as they became big, they went bankrupt. And of course, we are thinking of linear model, which is what we are talking about. We take raw materials out of the nature, process it, and put it back into nature. At the individual level also, if you look at the way we have progressed, we have put self ahead of society most of the times. We have put human ahead of nature. That's why we have been extracting. And we have always looked for, as you heard, the internet and the technologies, the way they're developing. We want instant solution as opposed to gradual solutions. So the problems that we are faced with need long-range approaches. So I believe that if you really look at the future now, we have to change in multiple dimensions. And I'll just take a few of them. If you look at particularly individual level, because as we are talking about individuals, we have to learn how to put self ahead of society. That means society ahead of self, as opposed to we have to put self ahead of society in the past. Nature ahead of human. We have done it the other way around. And of course, we have to think of more evolutionary type of solution as opposed to instant solution. Similarly, across the board, for example, let's take the foundational level. We have to learn how to look at economics, not only a choice between free market and the government. There are other dimensions of economics. How do we engage with the marketplace? We have to focus on not survival of the fittest, but the fitness of nature. That's where we are struggling a lot. And of course, not value of self-interest, but value of team interest. And how do we form communities? And there again, the technologies are coming into play, or the symphony that David was talking about becomes extremely important. So moving forward, as you could see, we have to think of a new S curve, which would be fundamentally different. If any of us think that we can continue to progress based on what we have learned in the 18th and 19th or the 20th century, that will be dangerous. And that change has to happen at a philosophical level, at the individual level, as well as economic and business constructs which define today's world. So I see it as a tremendous opportunity, an opportunity where we have to really think of what is the next ism, what is the X which is unknown, or what would be another way of looking at X as the confluence of multiple streams of inquiry, multiple streams of thinking. So to be able to do that, as we heard earlier, one side we have to understand the symphony of technology, how that will work. On the other side, we have to start thinking of new business models where you could have significantly more recycling or circular models as opposed to linear models. And then, of course, how to revive some of the wisdom in some of the ancient philosophies where we have given tremendous more emphasis on respect for nature, respect for individuals. In the process, hopefully we can move what I would call from an exploitative relationship with nature towards enriching relationship with nature. As simple as it may sound, we are talking about a fundamental shift as to how we relate with nature, how we work with each other. In the process, we create, hopefully, the new ism. Now, when you look at capitalism, as you know, there are city centers. We talk about the city of London, we talk about New York, we talk about Tokyo, we talk about Hong Kong and Singapore, and that's where the decisions are made, the centers of capitalism. What I think is going to happen, thanks to the internet, thanks to social media, most probably we'll move to a new model, which I call cellularism. That's my proposal to the term X, where each village or small towns would become the center of economic activities. So you do not move everyone to cities, and you have different thousands and millions of self-expression, and that's why the previous two talks were particularly relevant for me, because it is the how you express yourself, and in the process you connect to create what I'm calling cellular capitalism, where there's significant amount of compassion, consciousness as to how we relate with each other. So this is the final view of the future that I have, that so far, if you look at it, the degree of concentration of economic activities, which used to be decentralized when you used to live in the caves, it was highly decentralized, we were all in different caves, but over the last 50,000 years, as technologies moved, we moved to the cities, we got centralized, and the focus was economies of scale. But I think in the future, what you will see, will move towards a decentralized economy, which is significantly more greener, and at the same time will celebrate not economies of scale, but economies of cell. Cell meaning the small groups of people, cellular approaches which are connected with each other. In the process, we will celebrate the network economy. So thank you very much indeed.